Hi, Dave Littman from Truth in IT. Welcome to today's webcast. Microsoft Teams Soars from great to amazing with Citrix. Today's webcast will go just about 45 minutes, and today's webcast, of course, is sponsored by Citrix. And in just a second, I'm going to be introducing Mike Matchett. Mike is Principal Analyst and CEO with Small World Big Data, and he'll be joined by Nitin Sharma, who is Senior Product Marketing Manager for Citrix Workspaces. There is a Q&A panel at the bottom of the video player. Just click on that. We'll be queuing up your questions and getting to them at the end. As you know, we're also doing an Amazon gift card giveaway. We're giving away 10 Amazon gift cards, each valued at $100, and here's how that works. Toward the end of the webcast, we're going to put up an image that looks like this. Just click on it, and it will take you to a page that looks like this. Just hit the enter button, and you'll find out immediately whether or not you've won. And if you have won, you'll get an email directly from Amazon with instructions on how to redeem the gift card. And whether you've won or not, come back. We're running these events all the time. Please note, the volume control is on the bottom left of your screen, and there's closed captions on the bottom right, the little icon that has 3 dots in it. Just click on that. And you can also adjust the quality of the stream with the little gear icon, and you can pick standard or HD quality. So any questions, just chat them in, and Sarah will be getting back to you, and she'll queue them up for our panel at the end. So without further ado, let me hand things over to Mike. Mike, take it away.
Gee, thanks, Dave. I'm here with Nitin Sharma of Citrix, and we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about Microsoft Teams and Citrix's support for Microsoft Teams, their virtual apps and desktops and workspace solutions that really make Teams shine. One of the things that I've noticed in this space is that people are moving more and more away from thinking about how do we use different properties of operating systems to how do we use different properties of our desktops? How do we go into the cloud and get all those things we want as users, not really caring as much about infrastructure. I really want to go and get my files. I want to go and be secure. I want to go and collaborate. I want to go and talk to my fellow workers. And I don't really care about what's going on underneath. Thus, this whole business of moving into a world where we can collaborate tighter is really booming. So with further ado, let's talk to Nitin. Welcome, Nitin.
Hey, how's it going? This is Nitin Sharma, Product Marketing Manager for Citrix Workspace Services at Citrix.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on with you guys in terms of Microsoft Teams and virtual apps and desktops. Tell me a little bit about what the sort of the high level news is here.
Yeah, so first, before kind of going into it, before going into the in-depth as far as like how it is that we're optimizing Teams, sort of like kind of going into like how we got here.
Yeah.
So, you know, as you see today, well, most organizations today are faced with a workforce that doesn't necessarily come into the office anymore. They're all spread out. They're working from different places and locations on various different devices. So like basically the goal is to try to introduce sort of a solution that allows them to collaborate efficiently and communicate on any given day. Because again, the idea of coming into an office is sort of that old school way of working. A lot of the new generation of workforce that's coming into the enterprise want to work in sort of a flexible type of way. You're seeing a lot of people move from different locations, maybe due to costs, to more you know, lower cost places. So the idea for them, if they're really highly talented in their industry, organizations want to ensure that they're making those employees happy, but also giving them all the tools to make them sort of successful, collaborate, and productive. So together, we've helped address that with our Citrix Workspace solutions by allowing access to applications. But Microsoft is also doing that with Microsoft Teams, which allows users to be able to communicate and collaborate efficiently no matter where they're located. I'm kind of going into that, like Teams is actually huge in the enterprise now. It's one of Microsoft's like fastest growing applications, their business applications. This number has actually even changed within the past 3 months. Today, there's actually like 20 million daily active users with Teams. And the expectation is that this is just going to grow exponentially within the next 12 months and beyond. So for us, it's sort of very imperative that we work with Microsoft to ensure that we're allowing organizations to be able to deliver Teams, but in a very optimized fashion.
Yeah, I mean, very much it seems that in some of the research I've done, Teams is where Microsoft is really heading, and it's not so much even about the operating system, as I said before, even not so much about the application, but about the productivity of the knowledge worker and getting them tied together with other knowledge workers. But tell me a little bit about what's been happening over there as they've been going from Link to Skype for Business to Teams. It seemed like Skype for Business was kind of the point, and what does Teams bring that maybe those other products earlier didn't bring along?
Yeah, so that's a kind of good. So like we've had a long history working at Microsoft in ensuring that we're optimizing, so key solutions that the workforce is utilizing. Yep. So this kind of goes through the timeline of how we closely work with them from the Link days to, now Office 365. Right. Skype for Business was one of the biggest, requests from enterprises when it first released. To optimize that within a virtual environment. So we partner with them, and there's like over 800,000 daily active users that are using Skype that's being delivered via Citrix. But then with Teams coming introducing into the workforce, the reason why this is a little bit different than Skype for Business is this goes a little bit beyond than just a standard communication and chat app or like meeting type application. Teams is sort of robust on a lot of the capabilities that it can do. The goal of Teams is to go beyond the actual, you can communicate, you can chat, and you can actually share files and set up meetings. But the goal of Teams is to integrate in some other applications to ensure broader productivity and collaboration within a user base that's leveraging Teams. And a lot of times, organizations actually have this entitlement. I can kind of go into that a little bit later.
That's interesting. So when you look at what Microsoft's been doing, obviously they've got a long history of this. They've been getting very good at it and delivering it. A question that comes up, and you sort of started talking about this, is this need for Citrix optimization for this. And let's talk a little bit more about why you would want to optimize something like Teams with Citrix. Why is there why isn't Microsoft Teams enough by itself?
Yep. So there's a number of reasons. I just kind of categorized some of the key ones that we're capable of doing. Okay. Again, one of the key things is basically the ability to centralize. You have centralized control, or IT has centralized control of that application, so they can deliver Teams, within a virtual environment, alongside the other enterprise applications that they may have as well. This also introduces a number of policy controls that you could apply to Teams that Citrix gives you, like the ability to monitor and analytics, also the ability to, determine exactly how the end user experience is doing. That kind of segues into ensure that there's a level of security. You can store chat logs. You have some sort of visibility within how that user is interacting with Teams. Again, you're going to opt, but this is more of a Microsoft value, but like if you're an M365 customer, you actually have the ability to leverage Teams because it's part of your entitlement.
Okay.
But going more into the optimization, so our goal with a virtual environment is to deliver a very local-like experience when they're delivering Teams, but there's also a number of networking technologies that you can leverage with Citrix that optimize that when there is potentially, maybe the user's on a really poor bandwidth connection. And a good example is this. We have one of our guys that he's a Citrix employee, lives in rural Missouri, doesn't have an actual network access, but he actually just uses Citrix via an LTE modem. So he's actually still able to deliver an optimized experience of Teams and leverage like video conferencing and screen sharing because of the fact that there's a lot of offloading that's going in the endpoint, which I can go into a little bit later. But the key thing is that kind of segues into, we ensure enhanced server scalability. So because a lot of the optimization is going on in the end user's endpoint, it's leveraging the CPU and RAM resources on the end user's endpoint. It frees a lot of the backend server, the backend server, so it kind of reduces the server sprawl or server resources. Specifically, also if you're hosting within a public cloud, it helps you optimize that cost too.
All right, so just from what I'm hearing, Teams, a lot of people are getting a Teams license because they're getting Microsoft Office 365, and they're able to use it in this cloud-like individualized way, but it's not necessarily optimized for network traffic. It's not necessarily optimized for the enterprise things that you guys add in centralized control and security, and it's not necessarily optimized to give a high-quality experience to someone wanting to do enterprise production app things and at remote locations, right? You're bringing all that to the table, really multiplying the opportunity that Teams presents for enterprises that might have mobile and distributed users and lots of users in lots of places. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, we kind of look at it as we essentially complement, and we ensure that the delivery of Teams is going to give that user the best possible experience.
All right. So what does it kind of look like to an IT guy when you put Citrix in behind Teams? I mean, what kind of pieces are we talking about?
Yeah, so the difference between when we are optimizing Teams, we completely revamped how we do optimization compared to how it was with Skype for Business. So existing Citrix customers that are on this webinar, just kind of ensures that we revamped the actual Workspace media, the media engine that's within Workspace app, which is our client that a user would download and access their actual Citrix Workspace. Our goal with Teams is when we're optimizing, is to ensure it can be delivered on all platforms. It's supported on Windows devices right now, with the eventual goal of rolling it out to other devices later. Again, as I was mentioning, we optimize audio, video, but the difference between now is we actually are optimizing screen sharing as well. So screen sharing is actually one of the differences between how we do it today versus how we did it with Skype. And then single point authentication and signaling, ensuring that we're maximizing the actual reliability of the actual the Teams deployment within a Citrix environment. Because we did all this, we got certified for Microsoft Teams. Okay. But one of the things and this is a key logo that you'll see that ensures that it's going to optimize and ensure that efficient delivery of Teams. But just kind of getting a high level, this is kind of a busy screen, but I just wanted to kind of highlight the high level architecture of what it is that you're seeing. Again, the difference between Skype, the optimization that we had, it was an add-on pack that you had to download. But this one is actually optimized on the back end, virtual delivery agent. Okay. And a lot of the work is being done between the communication between our Workspace app client within the virtual delivery agent. And you see it's, the new embedded media engine is basically doing a lot of the power between the two. And then it's showcasing exactly how we're doing the audio, video, and screen sharing optimization. Now, again, there's a lot more in-depth technical documentation on exactly what's going on in the background. But I just wanted to kind of touch on how it looks. Right. It looks like.
Right. I mean, when I kind of just scan something like this, I can see that there's some analogies I might make, like you're really bringing your virtualization powers, the Citrix virtualization history and abilities to here to bring what someone might be doing if they were directly logged in on the cloud to that final mile, right? Bring it out to the endpoint, bring it out to where the user's actually sitting with the HDX optimization, like you said, and some of the enterprise ties and integrations happening at the back end. And I think it's worth pointing out again that a lot of what's actually executing here is going to be on the user's endpoint device, taking advantage of that otherwise wasted compute power and really encouraging a larger fan out of capability. So very cool. Let's talk a little bit about, maybe you could show us something on what it actually looks like from an end user perspective, and how you're actually optimizing that experience as you're going along. Maybe you could just point out where the savings are being accrued.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I got a quick video to kind of go through sort of like what exactly it looks like. So if you notice that this is me logging into my workspace, I'm clicking on my Win 10 desktop that's actually delivered from, it's actually a cloud desktop. It's a Windows 10 desktop delivered from the cloud. So you notice that I actually have my Teams client that's embedded or actually published within the actual Windows 10 virtual desktop. So you notice it's a complete native-like experience. I have my users that I constantly communicate with, and then I have suggested users, but a phone call coming in, and then I'll go ahead and answer that call. And again, this is all coming in from the virtual, the actual virtual desktop. You notice the screen quality, there's screen sharing that's going to be going on, or actually like just the communication back and forth. It's relatively smooth. And I want to emphasize the fact that when we actually did this, we shot this video, it's one of our early versions of our optimization. So we've actually since improved the actual, optimization itself. But you notice it actually works relatively smooth. So when I launch Task Manager, I just want to showcase exactly where exactly the compete resources and how they're using. So you notice it's relatively low because this is the actual Task Manager of the CPU resources that are coming on, representing from the actual backend virtual machine.
Right.
So because of the fact that a lot of the offloading is actually going to the endpoint. So I'll bounce out and showcase exactly, let's open up Task Manager on the actual local endpoint. From there, I'll just kind of filter through, kind of showcasing like how it's being, you'll notice that most of the CPU resources are actually being utilized on the actual endpoint device itself. The HDX overlay for Teams, it's going around 14% versus when it was in the VDA around 5%. Now, just wanted to quickly highlight that, we're running kind of, the machine itself is a pretty powerful machine. So the CPU percentage, it wasn't that high, but the key thing here was the fact that we're optimizing it on the endpoint, so it frees up that the backend resources, which helps reduce server density, server costs that are associated with server density, as well as if you're running these VDAs in a public cloud, it can kind of optimize your compute resources.
Right, and this is really something that you would not expect to see a cloud side service only offering be able to do, because you're making use of what's going on the endpoints, really again bringing it that final mile. So that's pretty good for folks. Now let's talk a little bit more about Microsoft Teams and Citrix's vision for enhancing the user experience. Tell me a little bit about where you guys are going. You have a history of also doing some virtual workspaces and things for users. Is this coming together with these partners like Microsoft, or do you have some vision going forward here?
Yeah, so like our entire goal is to, ensure that we're improving end user productivity for that modern worker.
Okay.
And then we're working with Microsoft on ensuring and doing that. Before kind of going into like the in-depth as far as like how it is that we're doing it together, I wanted to kind of go into the why a little bit more. So like, this is a good example that we use here. It's just sort of like, many employees that, they start their day, they have an assumption as far as what they're going to do that day, but then they actually spend a lot of activities doing things, just navigating around a lot of their applications, right? I mean, this is a good example of, the modern worker has a number of applications they're constantly having to interact with. Like when I log in, I may not necessarily use all the functionality within these applications that my organization's purchased. I'm going to only use a specific instance of it, which essentially can sort of prevent productivity. And I'll kind of go through like how that works, right? There's an example like Maria, someone that her name's Maria. She wants to basically starts her workday. She realized she wants to put in a vacation request. So she has to log in her company's, application to do that. So she kind of logs into Workday, for example. She has to kind of go through and, click that vacation request. And again, she has to log into it, find the actual tab to go into it. She remembers the fact that she gets a message from somebody on her team that's asking her for a status report. So she then, or an approval for an expense report. So she has to kind of log in to Concur again. So she has multiple tabs open. So she has to go find that and navigate to that. So she has to hit the approval of the expense report. And then, she realizes the fact that she has to go back to her calendar. She realizes she has an issue with her soft phone. She has to log in her ServiceNow and log in that ticket. So she has to kind of go through that and bounce through that application. She goes back to her calendar. She's basically having to go through and check the actual status of an opportunity within their Salesforce record. So she has to go into Salesforce, bounce to that, respond to her boss, that this deal that did close, kind of going through and doing that workflow. The key thing here is the fact that, she's interacting with so many applications and not necessarily utilizing all things that are within the application. Her job herself is actually, the way her applications are presented to her, just basically not optimized for the way she does her job. So, because she's, keeps switching back and forth. So our goal with that is to ensure that we actually introduce a way of like optimizing the employee experience. So that kind of goes into like how we're doing with Microsoft, right? And there's actual tangible numbers to it. When we're optimizing the employee experience, we ensure that there's higher productivity. Customers are actually happier that the ones that interact with the actual employee. Okay. Organizations can achieve a little bit more profitability as well as improved revenue growth.
Yeah. So, I was watching that and I was comparing it to my own experience day to day. And I can't remember when I log into something like Concur or Salesforce, all the different right key, click key, shortcut keystrokes. You're not going to memorize that for 20 different apps. So those don't really help you get faster. And you're right. You use like, a 5% slice of all those applications on a daily basis. And so just that task switching mentally is tough, context switching, which reminds me that there's no such thing as multitasking, really. We're just serially tasking at a high switch rate, right? So, and every time you switch context, you lose a little bit of your workflow and a little bit of your productivity. So anything you can do to streamline that would help. And this seems like a pretty decent problem to try to tackle here is how can I flow through the plethora of enterprise applications I deal with at a daily rate in a much faster way, and really reduce that context switching, if you will, right? So, maybe you could show a little bit more about how that starts to look when you use Citrix.
Yeah. So we actually introduced the Workspace last year, which essentially aggregates all the apps, desktops, and content for the user. Mm-hmm. So that can kind of help them not have to navigate through a number of applications, right? So, I mean, this example, when a user logs into a workspace, they have their apps, they have their desktops in front of them, whether it's cloud, Linux, et cetera. And then we have their files, which can integrate to like storage solutions like on OneDrive for Business. But last year we introduced the actual Citrix Workspace with intelligent feeds. So if you look at the earlier example of Maria, the intelligent feeds essentially just present all of the things that are relevant for Maria's job, front and center when she logs in, so she doesn't have to navigate within that application. Instead of like having to log in to Concur and do an expense report approval, it shows the fact that it presents to her that the fact that there is a task that she needs to complete. She can actually improve that expense report from there. And then these are also other quick actions that she can do from the actual Citrix Workspace. So she doesn't have to log into each individual apps. Basically, we're using what's called micro app technology, which will actually create a slice of that an action within that application. So she can actually just do something from there, like create an opportunity, create a meeting. And then basically our whole goal of this is to basically not switch back and forth. And then the example was like she can actually send a status incident within Teams, because within the workspace with intelligent feeds, you can actually send stuff directly back into Teams. So she just sent an incident ticket. So she's sharing information within the Citrix Workspace. So that's how we're working together from the Citrix Workspace and Teams integration. And then there's also a virtual assistant that's within the workspace that would actually do certain things that can, it works outside of Teams, but then the way it integrates within Teams, you can actually, like search for stuff within within Teams, like, and the virtual assistant will actually assist her with what she's looking for, right? So she's, looking for tickets, and it's actually just kind of presenting all of the, finding all of the tickets associated with the fact of some of the requests that she's put in.
Wow. I like this idea of the micro app. I can think of analogies across the landscape that I normally talk about, from everything from, APIs and serverless functions and things, but getting down to the idea I can encapsulate and automate specific tasks and now start to bring those together from all sorts of different places, and perhaps even building up, my work day out of a list of tasks from all these different apps, right? And being able to just plow through them is a really cool concept. So I'm gonna use that word micro app, I think, going forward, and talk about things in that term. So appreciate that. And it really looks like this assistant thing going on, right? I like that idea. I think people are starting, new generations coming into the workforce are really looking for that kind of leverage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're seeing examples of like how she's searching for things within Microsoft Teams, and it's communicating back to the workspace and presenting a lot of the information up there for her.
Right. So, and then integrating, of course, on top of that. So that is really great. And, what I look at this and I think, just a little bit cynically, there's probably a million things to integrate with. What can someone who's wanting to get into this Citrix leverage for Microsoft, what can you look for out of the box kinds of pre-built integrations? What kinds of tasks are already going to come with it?
Yeah, so we just introduced this a couple of months ago. There's key out-of-box integrations with a lot of the core vendors that a lot of enterprises are using.
Okay.
So, and then we're constantly working with different, and these are some examples of use cases that you can do within the micro app capabilities of these applications. And then we're constantly building out this portfolio to meet customers' demands as far as different different user requests.
A big catalog of pre-built micro apps, if you will, already. Decent list of apps. I'm sure most enterprises have at least 3 or 4, if not 5 or 6 of these already in their environment for various reasons. So pretty much you could hit the ground running, it looks like. Mm-hmm. What kind of value add would you say, if you had to summarize this up for someone to say, here is really the core reasons why I want to add Citrix Workspace to Teams? What really brings it all together for them?
Yeah, so just to kind of recap, what you saw was basically like you can send Workspace micro app notifications directly into Teams.
Right.
The virtual assistant that I was introducing is something that we're introducing. We're building it out, and right now that's currently in developing technology, but it's showcasing the fact that what the capabilities were. And then the key thing is that we're essentially integrating with Teams, basically with on-prem apps, via the micro app builder. Our essential goal with our Citrix Workspace and Microsoft Teams, or Microsoft, is just basically improving productivity for that modern worker. I always go back to what we were talking about earlier. We want to make sure that their day is as efficient as possible with optimal experience. So like what Microsoft is, we kind of, like Teams is sort of designed to be that, improve that human-to-human communication tool, improve communications between employees, improve their workstream collaboration. And then with the Citrix Workspace, our goal with that is to help organize, guide, and automate a lot of the work that people do within their actual apps and systems, and streamlining that workflow. So together, our goal is essentially like it's improved collaboration and personal productivity, across basically everything that an employee does. That it goes beyond just the fact that where it goes beyond just sort of delivering an optimized experience. We want to make sure that we're kind of changing the way people work, specifically as more technologies get introduced in the enterprise. So, I mean, pretty much like why you'd want to, optimize Citrix with Teams. Again, our goal is to deliver an improved remote user experience, improving that, collaboration between your meetings, your chat, your sharing. If you got a BYOD initiative, it's to ensure that, you have a solution that can help you ramp up BYOD. And then ensuring that you actually deliver a really optimized experience, specifically with a lot of our HDX technologies on the back end, improving all of that. And ensuring that the fact that while you're doing that, and you're also ensuring that there's improved security.
Yeah, I know at a high level, you could almost say this is about really supporting digital transformation in an enterprise, because you want to get someone from doing things in a paper way and in a local way to being able to collaborate remotely and online with everybody else in the company, right? Really just connect that connecting fiber. At a deeper level, we're really talking about bringing some the ability for people to actually virtualize to start with, right? I think we could talk about a little friction being when someone says, hey, give up your desktop and go to a virtual workspace, right? Citrix has seen this in spades over the years, right? How do you convince someone to go virtual on their desktop? And if performance is bad, that's the friction. So by being able to bring HDX to Teams and saying, you can do this and have an optimal experience. You can get video as if it's a local experience. And I think you said local there. I think that's really one of the sort of key levers people are going to find is you bring Citrix optimization here, and you can, people will want to go to Teams, and people will want to go to virtual workspaces, and they will want to go to that virtual space because their performance will actually improve over what their local ability could be to collaborate. So that's a lot of talk. Any sort of summary you'd make to people about working with Citrix? What's your experience there?
Yeah, so we have a number of key things and resources that you guys reach out to. So you do have a Citrix overlay or sales rep that's probably tied to your specific region. You could help. You can actually search for that within citrix.com/contact. Basically, you would also request a demo or visit, Microsoft MTC or Citrix Technology Center, so you can actually see this in action. And you can actually get more information on our website. We actually have a unique sort of section within our website that kind of goes more in depth as far as what that Teams integration is, how it works. From there, you can get documentation on exactly how to implement it. Some key things on like how to implement, some best practices. So the goal of it is to sort of like, there's a number of resources that you guys could, customers can leverage that that are interested in seeing how this looks like in their environment.
All right, some questions are coming in here. Let me take a look. Okay, how about this? Does this offer support for optimization if we're deploying Windows Virtual Desktop with Citrix? So I guess that's a question for you.
Yep. So yeah, we got some interest with customers that are looking at Windows Virtual Desktop. Now Citrix can allow you guys, the customers, to deploy Windows Virtual Desktop alongside their existing enterprise applications. And yes, so yeah, because we're the only solution right now that's optimizing Teams for virtual environments. If you're deploying Windows Virtual Desktop, you do have the capabilities of optimizing Teams within a Windows Virtual Desktop. We actually have a demo. One of our field engineers does the demo where he's showcasing the Teams, very similar to the video I showed earlier, from a Windows Virtual Desktop session.
Oh, very cool. Here's another question, and I'm not sure I even understand it. Is this optimization available for LTSR customers? So what's LTSR, first of all?
Yeah, so that's probably an existing customer asking that question. For folks that are on the line that are not Citrix customers, LTSR is our long-term service release.
Okay.
So we do our releases in different ways, very similar to Microsoft. They have a current release, and we have a long-term service release. So current releases are more rapid deployments. Our long-term service release is more of we do one release every 3 years. Customers utilize an LTSR release if they're in compliant, like industries that require some sort of compliance for a specific build, so they can get this build certified and they know that they can have that for 3 years. So that was a long explanation, but yes, the optimization is available for LTSR customers.
Okay.
They just have to make sure they're on our most recent long-term service release, which we released this past December. It's the 1912 release. So it's like 1912 LTSR for virtual apps and desktops.
Wow, I hadn't even thought about that angle of releasing and being in compliance and having to certify all your versions. It takes a while. So let me see. Maybe time for another question here. Okay, we're using SD-WAN, Citrix SD-WAN, and they want to know if this Teams works with that. Does optimization Teams integrate with SD-WAN?
Yes. So because it's a workload that's passing through the SD-WAN, yeah, the SD-WAN does optimize. Well, it's actually, I wouldn't say optimize. It further complements the optimization itself. Kind of mentioned earlier that we have a guy that lives in rural, and he's actually would do a lot of demos. And one of the demos he does virtually is actually the Teams demo, and he actually does it over an LTE modem. And then he's got an SD-WAN doing a lot of the, like the optimization of the traffic that's passing through it. Again, the goal of it is the fact that if you have, if customers are using SD-WAN because they may have a part of their workforce that could be in troubling network conditions. Mm-hmm. So if they're leveraging SD-WAN and they're utilizing Microsoft Teams deployed via Citrix, it ensures that they're actually going to, it's a good combination of solutions that ensures that they're further delivering a really optimized experience for that user. I have aspirations of just maybe working from a cabin one day. And obviously that there's a lot of internet doesn't go there. So if I'm passing through a lot of the traffic through an SD-WAN box, it's going to help me deliver a really optimized experience when I'm using Teams or doing Teams meetings.
Yeah, we might all have similar aspirations to work remotely from various places. Some people from the beach, some people from a cabin, some mountain on top, whatever it is. Citrix is going to help you get there. That's the message here. So I think that's all the time for questions we have. Even though there's a few more that came in, we'll give you to those offline. Thank you again for being here, Nitin.
Thank you.
And back to you, Dave.
All right, great job, guys. Great job, Mike and Nitin. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with our audience today. Let's put up the Amazon gift card. Just click on the image below. It will take you directly to the giveaway. You'll find out immediately whether or not you've won. Any questions or any issues, just contact us at info@truthinit.com. I'm Dave Littman from Truth in IT. Thanks very much for watching. Make it a great day, and we'll see you next time.